Welcome back. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating world of literary nonfiction. We're going to explore exactly how we make connections and evaluate perspective when we read. We'll be building the precise analytical skills you're going to need to tackle really powerful texts, just like our anchor text for this unit, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Here's our learning map for today's explainer. We'll start with biography versus autobiography, move into the sourcing routine, do a quick text comparison practice, look at connecting textual evidence, check your understanding, and finally wrap up with a recap and a transfer prompt. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Biography versus Autobiography. So the national reading frameworks place both biographies and autobiographies under the umbrella of informational texts, specifically literary nonfiction. A biography is an account of a person's life, but it's written by someone else. An autobiography, on the other hand, is an account of a person's life written by that person themselves. They both tell a life story, right? But the absolute most crucial point here is the identity of the creator. That identity literally changes everything about how we as readers should approach the text. And this brings us to a massive misconception. A lot of readers think, well, if it's an autobiography, it's just a factual, objective timeline of what happened. Let's just correct that right now. Autobiographies, and honestly biographies too, are never purely objective. No way. They are shaped entirely by the author's unique perspective, their personal choices about what to include or just leave out, and their underlying purpose. An author is always advancing a very specific interpretation of the facts. When we read literary nonfiction, we are reading a highly curated narrative, not just some sterile list of dates. Moving right along to Section 2, let's look at the sourcing routine. So how do we actually uncover an author's unique perspective? Well, before you accept any informational text as pure fact, you've got to run it through a 5-step filter. Think of this as your detective's toolkit. Step 1, who is the creator? Step 2, who is their intended audience? Step 3, what is the date of publication? And kind of think about what was happening in the world at that time. Step 4, what is the author's purpose? Like, why did they actually write this? And finally, Step 5, what is the visible evidence sitting right there on the page? This routine forces you to stop and ask why the text exists before you even figure out what it says. Regarding that last step, visible evidence, we really need to be incredibly precise. 8th grade reading standards actually require us to separate what a text explicitly says from the inferences we draw from it. Explicitly stated refers to the facts clearly, literally written on the page, like you can point your finger right at the words. Logical inferences, on the other hand, are the conclusions you, the reader, draw by connecting the text to your own knowledge. Identifying the author's perspective almost always requires us to make logical inferences based on the specific words they explicitly chose to use. Let's test this out in Section 3 with a quick created practice. Okay, let's put this into practice and act as literary detectives. Both of these short fictional snippets describe the exact same event. A second-hand account, a biography, says, Mayor Jones saved the park by cutting the budget in 2025 to impress voters. Now, a first-hand account, an autobiography, says, in 2025, to protect our green spaces, I made the tough choice to restructure park funding. Notice how the explicit facts are actually super similar. It's 2025, funding changed, the park is involved, but the purpose and perspective are vastly different. The biography infers this really political motive, right, to impress voters. The autobiography, however, frames it heroically, a tough choice to protect green spaces. The creator's identity completely alters the tone of the whole shebang. Now for Section 4, let's talk about connecting evidence across a whole text. So how do we take these observations and turn them into a deep understanding of a full book? Your job isn't just to read one sentence in isolation, you've got to connect evidence across the entire text. You do this by first acknowledging conflicting viewpoints, asking yourself who might actually disagree with how the author is framing this. Then, you must trace the author's argument over the course of the text. You should constantly be evaluating first-hand versus second-hand accounts, really noting what the author emphasizes or avoids. And most importantly, you continuously integrate explicit facts with your own logical inferences to understand how specific word choices shape the overall tone. Section 5. Time for a quick check of your understanding. Question 1. Think back to our Mayor Jones example. Which of the following is a logical inference rather than an explicitly stated fact from our text? Is it A, the event happened in 2025? Or B, the mayor cares deeply about her public image? Take just a second to think about the difference between what is literally on the page versus the conclusions we draw. If you guessed B, you are absolutely right. The reasoning here is super fundamental. The text explicitly states the year 2025. You can point right at those numbers on the page. But the text never uses the exact words, cares deeply about her public image. We made a logical inference that she cares about her image based on the biographer's explicit phrasing that she did it to impress voters. Excellent job separating fact from inference there. Let's try question 2. How does identifying the creator and purpose in our sourcing routine actually correct the main misconception about autobiographies? Is it A, it proves they are completely objective, or B, it reveals the author's unique perspective and bias? And for sure, the correct answer is B. Identifying who wrote a text and why they wrote it reminds us that all informational texts, even those first-hand autobiographies, are heavily shaped by perspective. They are just not purely objective timelines. By finding the creator and the purpose, we expose the underlying bias and the viewpoint that really drives the narrative. Finally, Section 6. Let's recap and transfer these skills. All right, here are your 3 major takeaways. Biographies and autobiographies are informational texts shaped by the author's unique perspective and purpose, not objective timelines. By using the 5-step sourcing routine, creator, audience, date, purpose, and visible evidence, you can uncover these biases. This routine also helps you connect textual evidence by separating what is explicitly stated from logical inferences. Now for your transfer prompt. As you read the authorized text, "I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings," apply this 5-step sourcing routine to analyze how the author's perspective shapes her narrative. But ask yourself this as you read. If every autobiography is just a curated version of the truth, can we ever truly know someone else's story, or only the story they want us to hear?